if you think synchronicities are not real, then perhaps if you ask nicely, maybe one day I will tell you exactly how the television show Lost is exactly why I am where I am right now, physically and metaphorically. You guys don't know me, but if you did, you would know that aside from Golden Girls, Lost is not only my favorite show of all time, but is objectively the greatest television show of all time. A documentary came out last year called Getting Lost, and I struggled to find it. I didn't know where it was airing, and then I forgot about it. And then another thing you may or may not know about me is I talk often about synchronicities. By complete happenstance, I happened to turn on Tubi in search of something to turn my brain off, so I could just ease my grief of the passing of my cat, and there it was, Getting Lost. And I was very hesitant to press play because of how important Lost is to me and how much it has informed my life, how much connective tissue there is to that show, and my lived experiences, my memories with very specific people and times in my life, and just how much that show has informed where I am and what I study and why I'm getting the degree that I'm getting. And I didn't know if I was ready to feel any more feelings, right? So I was very hesitant to press play. But I decided to watch it. It's a 2-hour documentary, an hour and a half if you account for commercial breaks. And it's an extraordinary documentary, and much of the cast is present. And I implore you to watch it if you haven't as a Lost fan, because it is so deeply accurate in its accounting of how important that show was, not just in hindsight in terms of what it did for television that came after it, in terms of how it has informed pop culture as a whole, but and television writing and mythology and lore and world building, but it is so very accurate and it is such a generous and it is so appreciative of the fandom. It is so aware of how the relationship between Lost and its fans was a symbiotic relationship, which just doesn't exist in the same way anymore, because Lost, as is articulated so well in this documentary, existed in a very particular space and time before social media really took hold, where it was message boards, where there was fandoms and communities online on the internet, but it wasn't quite yet social media. And if happen to be from Orlando, like I am, born and raised, one of my best and greatest memories of all time was listening to, for context, if you're familiar with Real Radio 104.1 in Orlando, Monsters in the Morning, Monsters in the Afternoon, whatever, and Soul Brother Kevin, SBK, had his own show in the afternoons, the SBK show, and he was a huge Lost fan, and in real time, because again, this was pre-social media, there were message boards, and then there was turning into podcasts or your local radio station. And for us in Orlando, it was SBK. So shout out to Soul Brother Kevin, wherever you are. And he would do every Thursday morning on his show was dedicated to Lost, the entire hour of his show. And he would host Lost watch parties at Drunken Monkey on Bumby. Also shout out to Drunken Monkey on Bumby. You're still there, and I love you. And one of the greatest and most vivid and most important memories I have is of watching the season 3 finale at an official SBK Lost watch party at Drunken Monkey with my ex and his brother, to, the love of my life and his brother, and we were there and watching that in a group, a crowded cafe, standing room only cafe. The shock and awe that washed over everyone when you realized you were getting a flash forward, the shock and awe and the actual raw, sincere emotion that just enveloped the room when Jack said, "We have to go back, Kate," cannot, it's so cliche to say it, but you had to have been there. You had to have been there in 2008, 9. So I implore you, if you are a Lost fan, to watch Getting Lost on Tubi. And if you have never watched Lost, this is your invitation to do so. To watch, there was the X-Files and there was Twin Peaks. There were things that came before Lost, but Lost set a very specific precedent and did things that are still record-setting and precedent-setting to this day. And we would not have Severance, Westworld. We would not have any of these mystery box narratives if it weren't for Lost. And John Locke, to this day, he's on my altar upstairs, I'll talk about it for 10 hours. I just won't stop talking about it. If you haven't watched Lost, this is your invitation to do so. If you love mythology, if you love world building, if you love character development, and this is one of the reasons why shows like Yellow Jackets don't work. This is one of the reasons why From doesn't work, in spite of having somebody like Harold Perrineau from Lost leading that cast. It's because there is no investment in the characters. There's no meat for the characters to chew on. Lost was about the characters, and that's why the finale was so divisive, is because certain fans wanted answers over closure, and other fans, like myself, a finale apologist, was thrilled with the closure that was given to the characters, because it is the respect that was given to the characters, the building of their narratives, their past, their presence, their futures, their sidewayses, that made the show work, that made you care enough to keep investing Wednesday after Wednesday for 6 years, bitch. Watch Lost and watch the documentary if you need a tonic. And I'll see you in another life, brother.